Hey everybody, Ben Frederickson here alongside Jeff Gordon. Welcome to another episode of Inside Pitch here at Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com. Gordo, we're not going to keep beating up on the Cardinals. Well, we'll take some shots along the way, but I actually want to spin this conversation forward. Here's my question to you. I got two. Is your starting shortstop situation for the Cardinals figured out and solved for next season? Are you comfortable if the Cardinals show up at spring training 2024 and say, Masyn Winn is our starting shortstop, and we're going to roll with that? And if not, what would you rather see? If you are, what would you want to see around it to feel like, okay, the kid's ready to be the full-time starter at the start of a promising season, not the tail end of a lost one?
Well, if you look at this roster, it's a big puzzle with a lot of pieces. Now, if you could put Masyn Winn in that shortstop piece and say, okay, kid, it's your job until you run out of arbitration and you're getting into free agency, then we'll have to think about it. But until then, it's yours. So just solve that. Take his arm, take his speed, let his bat evolve. He could be a 9-hitter as he is. In today's game, he can still have value. He can beat out some hits, he can steal some bases. He's got a great arm, he's going to get better and better, he's got swagger. Solve that problem. Now you look at all the other things. What are you going to do about second base? What are you going to do about catcher? You've got all kinds of options, DH. What do you do with all of these spots? I think that's step one. So let's move on, Ben Fred, to step two, which is the catching scenario. Andrew Knizner's hitting. Ivan Herrera's had a breakout year at AAA. Willson Contreras is hitting the ball like a big-time player that the Cardinals thought he was. But what do you do? Because he's maybe not going to be the next Yadi Molina behind the plate.
Well, he's not, and here's the thing, we knew that. And the one person who has lived up to the billing this season on this team has been Willson Contreras. He's had some defensive issues, which we knew about coming in. It's not his fault that all the Cardinals pitchers were terrible. Now, he maybe had a role in it, but believe it or not, Jack Flaherty is having ups and downs for Baltimore now, shocker, and he doesn't have Willson Contreras to blame anymore. You don't hear him talking about how one of the elite young catchers in the game is the problem with his rocky starts. It was the pitching, and unfortunately, Willson got thrown under the bus. Now, I think the Cardinals made multiple mistakes this season. One was saying that Willson Contreras has to be the all-time everyday starter, that he has to catch all these games, and that he's the primary catcher no matter what. It's not ever going to be a timeshare. I think that was unnecessary. He didn't have to announce anything like that. So I would be okay with him having more of a timeshare there moving forward, but I still think he's got to be part of the catching solution. Maybe he DHs a little bit. But I'd also like to see Willson just get another shot to go do this job. I think he was given a bad staff. He was thrown under the bus. He's a player who plays better with confidence. I would like to see the Cardinals say, hey, look, rough year. Your first season replacing a legend is tough. Go out and let's work on some things this offseason. You're going to be the guy moving forward. I'd like to see how he responds to that before they trade him for nothing or have to pay him to go away. Now, that backup, goodness, they sure seem to think that Ivan Herrera is going to be the next guy. To me, that you can't have three. So I would maybe explore trading Knizner this offseason now that he's shown some offseason pop, but you can't do that unless you're confident that Contreras can be the guy you signed him to be. And if you're not, well, then you got to do something and consider what does any team out there want him if you're just willing to punt on the contract. So that's the tricky one. That's the one that's going to have to solve this offseason. At shortstop, to me, I'm good with Masyn Winn starting there, but here's how. I want Tommy Edman and Brendan Donovan on this team next year.
Right.
And I want Edman maybe playing center field. I'm okay if he starts in center field between Jordan Walker and Lars Nootbaar, but that leaves Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman for second, and then Donovan can bounce around as needed. He can be your super utility guy if Edman's your center fielder. That, to me, is depth. And if you trade one of those guys and then ask Masyn to start at shortstop, I think that leaves you a little thin.
Well, you do have a lot of protection if you keep both Tommy and you keep Brendan. Brendan had a really big breakout year. Then you just, hey, if this kid needs a little time off or needs to go back to Memphis, he's fine. Don't think that's going to be the plan, but sometimes plans change. It's nice to have a backup. But a lot of guys still to figure out in that, and I'll throw one last one out there. Alec Burleson is really making a case, giving some production now after getting a chance to deliver, getting the chance that Patrick Wisdom and other guys didn't get here. Boy, a big crowd of DH. Not sure about him in the outfield, but they don't mind having another left side hitter. So something else for them to think about.
We know the Cardinals have to figure out their pitching, but they've got some things on the position side to sort out as 2024 offseason approaches as well. Hey, keep it locked at STLtoday.com for all of your Cardinals coverage. For Jeff Gordon, I'm Ben Frederickson. We'll talk to you next time.